The daily live stream. Do me a favor. First and foremost, happy Wednesday, everybody. Happy, what they call it, hump day, middle of the week. I hope your week is going well. I hope the week is treating you well thus far. So happy Wednesday. I hope you're safe, your family's safe. A lot of people got a lot of snow where I'm at. We got a decent amount of snow. Not as much as we did the first time around, but not as much as like some place like Idaho that got 37 inches, right? Places in New York got 24 plus. New England, it was kind of crazy. Like, it was crazy. But, you know, the weather's been kind of crazy for a couple of years now. I've been saying, at least where I'm at, especially in the northeastern area of like Pennsylvania, it's been at least like you get snow, but it's been a long time, like, since there's been a lot of snow, and we've experienced that. So Mother Nature did her thing as per usual. So yeah, I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everybody is safe. Happy Wednesday. As you come into the live stream, make sure you hit that like button for me. Make sure you say what's up in the chat. Please be interactive because we appreciate that. We look for that in the chat. As long as you respect all mods, all supporters, and all subscribers, we have no issues here. I will not ban or censor you from the chat. If I see you doing that, you're getting banned, you're getting censored. Simple as that. That's the only thing that gets you banned or censored over here. So we're gonna jump into the live stream. We got a couple of clips to jump into. You know what? I'm going to pull it up from here. President Trump got something going on live right now that we're actually not going to react to because it's not on the agenda. Let me see something here. Okay, so we got a couple of reactions to Trump's State of the Union address. We got Stephen A. Smith. He shout out to AT2. He covered something on Stephen A. Smith having a conversation. Shout out to Antonio Talks. He covered something on the truth about 50 Cent. So we're going to get into a couple of these reactions / videos. Remember, like, subscribe, say what's up in the chat. All right, let's get into it.
It's hard to run a business on your own. Make it easier on yourself.
Okay, you know what? First, let's go to the Amazing Lucas. So shout out to the Amazing Lucas. He got kicked out 90 seconds in. Okay, so for those of you, I don't know how many of you guys actually got a chance to watch. Those of you that actually got a chance to watch the State of the Union, but it was crazy. Just like it was last year. Like, it was, I think what frustrated me is I had higher hopes for the Democrats, and they still let me down. They were still extremely disrespectful to their president. They were still screaming and shouting things while Trump was talking. In the middle of Trump talk, they still weren't supportive of certain people that were getting, honors, and they were getting recognized. And it was, oh man, it was disappointing to say the least. But I said that the last time. I said at the end of the day, whether they like Trump or not, he's the president of the United States. He's everybody's president, right? So I just hate to see him being disrespected on such a grand stage where the rest of the world can kind of see this. And we look crazy. We got world leaders saying, look at those crazy Americans that never respect their leaders. Look at those crazy Americans that say whatever they want. So I hate that. Like, for us, I really do hate that. So that was the State of the Union, but let's see how the Amazing Lucas reacted to it. He had a couple things to say, mainly about the hecklers, about 90 seconds in. So let's take a look.
What was this? Oh my goodness. So, like I and millions of other Americans did not watch the State of the Union address because there was nothing to watch, to be honest with you. What it looked like, I saw the highlight reel. It seemed like a circus, okay? It seemed like a WWE event. You had, people with signs, people booing, people walking out, Trump calling people crazy. It just seemed like foolishness. But starting off with the highlight reel, we start with, Stephen A. Smith, who is clearly back on his tap dancing, Sambo soldier, behavior. And he goes on to talk about, we need some adults in the room because, Democrats are talking about walking out and stuff like that. How can you hold Trump to a higher moral standard?
President of the United States going to give his State of the Union address, and the Democrats got other plans. So some are talking about walking out in the middle of his speech. Others are talking about boycotting it altogether and essentially finding something else to do. I'm here to tell you that neither is acceptable. Neither should be acceptable. At some point in time, ladies and gentlemen, there's got to be an adult in the room. If you're going to act as juvenile, as petulant, as petty, as you accuse the president of the United States to be, how are you ever going to hold a high moral ground, at least high enough to judge him accordingly?
See now, okay. So this is actually the part of Stephen A. Smith that I can kind of understand. And this is simply because I guess you could say this is the part of him that's not so far left and he's more moderate / center. I can understand this side of Stephen A. Smith because what he's trying to say here is this. Hey, listen, like stop acting so ratchet, Democrats. Like just stop, right? Like you want to be upset with President Trump and you don't like the things that he's doing, but then you guys will do something like go to the State of the Union address and you'll be this immature, like you're shouting things as the President of the United States is speaking, as he's talking, you're booing, as he's giving someone recognition or special notoriety honors, you're booing them. So like I understand what he's saying here. I get it. Like I know why Lucas is saying that he's tap dancing. Like I can understand both sides of it. And that's why it could be kind of frustrating because I could see where Lucas is like, Steven, cut it out. And I could also see I'm not going to say the more conservative side, but the more moderate side of Steven, the more centered side of him, where he's just like, I don't like the behavior. Like as Democrats, you can't sit there and criticize the president when you're going in there and you're being just as childish, if not more childish than what he's being.
This is a sick Negro.
How stupid does Stephen A. Smith have to be? Genuinely. This is why we can't have any progress, because there are Sambo soldiers who are being just bankrolled to say foolishness. Like, listen, I don't care if you Democrat, Republican, Independent, but we have a president of the United States who has been credibly charged with doing heinous things to children, right? In addition to him constantly, wiping the Constitution with his rear end, and you're talking about how you're going to hold Trump to a higher ground if you walk out on the State of the Union address. I'm sorry. Does anyone not remember Tweedledee and Tweedledum? I forgot Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene screaming and hollering at Biden. Like, what are we talking about? It blows my mind how people just seem to, their memories go the way of the dinosaur when it comes to calling out the hypocrisy. And furthermore, I'm sorry, we have bigger priorities right now than people walking out. If you can see what Trump has been doing for these years and think that because someone walks out when he's given a speech that they don't even have to be at, okay? There is nothing legally binding them to show up at the State of the Union. But to try and act like that's somehow juvenile and not how Trump has been wielding his power, Stephen A. Smith needs to go back into his mother's womb and better develop his brain. Because it's clearly not...
Go back. Well, his brain's not even developed when he comes out, right? It's actually not developed until he's probably around 26, 27. But I get what Lucas is saying here. Like, he's frustrated. And at the end of the day, he's saying that, is it okay for President Trump to do what he's doing with his power? You think what the Democrats are doing by booing him and by acting the way they're acting at the State of the Union address, you think that's worse than what President Trump has been out here doing? And we're seeing people getting shot by ICE, and so that's why I said I can see both sides of it. I can see why Lucas is frustrated, by that. And granted, there have been some pretty treacherous, heinous things that our president has. Unfortunately, people have, pinned on him, have said like, no, this is definitely Trump, 100%. And it's like he's associated with it, whether he likes it or not. So, I could understand why Lucas is frustrated by this. But I think some of this is also Stephen's, his strategy if he is going to indeed run in the 2028 presidential election. Do I think that he should necessarily do that? Not so much, because Stephen has even gone on record to say he doesn't think that he's qualified to do it. So I think he should kind of chill on that. Maybe if it was a lower office like mayor, you know what I mean? Like, sure, governor, perhaps. 2028 presidential race, I think that's stretching it, because I feel like all somebody like a Gavin Newsom has to do a step in and it's a wrap. So we're gonna see how that works out, though.
Not fully developed, okay? Apparently, his hairline didn't develop either. That's why he's coming out with this foolishness. Damn. But then we get into, I'm sorry, what's his name? Al Green. Listen, he did the same stunt during the last time, with his cane and everything. I'm sorry of this theatrical, bull crap, okay? That's great that you're holding a sign, black people aren't apes. They kick him out. they kick him out. He gets hurried out of here. And so now he's got his little limelight, his little coverage of, I'm standing up. And this is the foolishness that I'm talking about when it comes to Democrats. They love the theater of it all. They're nothing more, honestly, in some cases, really just a reflection of Trump, just a poor, flaccid, sterile reflection of Trump. Damn. Trump loves theater, but he loves being theatrical with heinous things that he does, okay? Democrats love theater, but they love being, theater kids, but doing nothing. Like, what do I care about Al Green holding up a sign that black people aren't apes? But like, fam, what? Like, if you had to hold up a sign in 2026 to say that, you're cooked, okay? There is no more black people aren't apes. I mean, please let us free. Like, what are you doing? It angers me that, I don't know. Because I know he's like a boomer or whatever he is, but that mindset has penetrated the community where now people are marching. We still holding up signs. And it's like, the time for signs is over. These people are killing their own, fam. Okay? They're eating their own. And you Negroes are still in the 1860s talking about, we shall overcome.
He's out of line, but he's right.
There needs to be some gentrification in the Democrat Party. That's what I'm going to say. There needs to be some gentrification. There needs to be some, what's the one? Euthanizing. Okay, we need to do all of that in the Democrat Party because they are a bunch of fools right now. They don't know what they're doing. Then it gets to Trump being the uniter in chief that he is, calling all...
Yeah, W chat. Shout out to Bart C. Bart C said, Green made a career on the race hustle. He can't change. Yeah, I'm afraid so. And like a lot of people on the Democratic side, they like Al Green. They look up to him. I hate that he did that though. I watched that State of the Union live. I caught it live on live stream last year. We have it, and I was like, really, bro? Like it's like I say it all the time. I get it. Like you have people that didn't vote for Trump and they're like, because I didn't vote for him, that's not my president. I probably have a very different opinion about this because I served in the military. So I just can't get with the whole disrespecting the president publicly. I mean, I get sometimes you're going to laugh, joke, say little things about it because we're Americans and we just happen to be, a country where we can talk about our world leader and we don't get executed. So we do it a lot and we do it disrespectfully. But, dude, even when Biden was in office, like, I didn't do stuff like that. Like, I wasn't, like, constantly, like, making fun of him, making jokes, making videos. I hate when people do things like that because at the end of the day, he already won the election. So it doesn't matter. Like, he's already our president. They act like he's just the president of the Republicans, which is ridiculous.
All the Democrats, they're crazy. They're crazy.
These people are crazy. I'm telling you, they're crazy.
Because what they think is like this gotcha is Trump tries to do this ultimatum, right? It's like, well, okay, if you think America is for Americans and not illegal aliens, then stand up.
If you agree with his statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens.
When the doors closed last time, people went nuts. By popular demand, we are open.
And it's like, bro, you're in no position to have any standing on anything. You are a vile POS, bro. And this gotcha, because the Republicans are running with this, like, oh, look, they hate America. No, he's in no position to say anything, bro. Talking about America's for illegal aliens, bro. What are you talking about? No one wants to hear anything out of someone who won't even prosecute people who are doing heinous things to the youth, who are doing heinous things to women and children, trafficking. And this mofo wants to say, well, you're with America if you stand, and if you don't stand, then you hate America. Like, get the hell out of here. Now, I know the low IQ, ignorance of the Republican Party going, see, they hate America because they're not standing. What would it matter? One thing I love about the ignorant is that you can expect them to be ignorant. Let's say all the Democrats stood. Then what? Nothing changes. Does somehow magically the white ignorant Republican go, oh, wow, I guess the Democrats stood. I guess they do love America. And I guess we just have a difference of opinion. Is that what we're to expect is going to happen from them standing upon Trump saying that? Like, you can miss me with this nonsense. This is absolute foolishness to the utmost degree.
But Brondo's got what plants crave.
It's got electrolytes.
But then it gets a highlight for me. Arena Zavankia or whatever, little white girl who got, unfortunately yeeted due to the black guy on the train. The funniest part is how Trump goes on describing it, right? He gets real graphic with, oh yeah, she was stabbed and she bled out and she was begging for her mother and like.
Who had been arrested over a dozen times and was released through no cash bail, stood up and viciously slashed a knife through her neck and body.
What?
Bro, the mom's right there. Do you not have any tact? Do you do you have any gracefulness in your speech, or is everything just thud, thud, thud? The guy's a fool, bruh. And the only reason they care about her is because it's a black guy. That's the only reason they care about her. But the comedic part about this is that he tries to blame immigration.
Set free to kill in America, came in through open borders.
The black guy who yeeted her wasn't an immigrant. So what is he even talking about? Like, I have no idea. But the comedy, right? The real comedy, the irony in all of this, especially with the little white girl on the bus, was that she had to flee Ukraine due to your incompetence of handling Russia. Damn. Does anyone not understand this? That the reason why this girl was even in the country as a refugee, something that they don't believe exists, okay? Because when it's a brown refugee, no, they're terrorists. But when it came to Ukrainians, the whole media got on code, right? Oh, these aren't just regular refugees. These are people, these are white people. These are blonde hair, blue-eyed people, right? So if it hadn't been for Trump being a complete jackass when it came to his handling of Russia and Ukraine and the war that was going on, she wouldn't even have had to escape. She wouldn't even have had to be a refugee.
Ironic.
Furthermore, what is you propping her up and using her death as a political tool? What does that get you? It gets you nothing, because it's not like the guy did it because he was of sound mind. No, he had a mental health disorder. He was mentally unwell. So instead of actually putting money into mental health, these mofos have done everything to cripple mental health. They don't even acknowledge mental health. This is the same thing that happens when it comes to law, shootings, right? They constantly want to say, well, don't blame the gun. Okay, if that's what you want to do and you want to say blame the person, then how about we go about helping these people who are clearly mentally disturbed? How about that? Well, you got to help yourself. This is the cycle of stupidity that we have in this country.
But Brondo's got what plants crave.
It's got electrolytes.
This is the nonsense that we're dealing with. Okay, so even the highlights got me upset. Even the highlights got me upset. And these fools are going around talking about, oh, look, Trump did the longest, State of the Union speech ever, and he's 80 years old. Who gives a flying flip, bruh? Like, what is him doing a 2-hour speech have anything to do with, his popularity, which is shot, right? His popularity is in the toilet. What does that have to do with the success of his presidency thus far, which is in the toilet? What does that have to do with the success of his policies, which everything is in the dumpster right now, due to the volatility of this man's freaking, haphazard, arm and hand signing executive orders or just saying stuff out of his mouth, right? With no filter. So, but yes, he did have the longest speech. These people are what needs to happen? I can't say. But what should happen, these people should be, lightly phrase packaged up and sent to the moon. And if it wasn't for, I don't know, just for their incompetence, because it's not like Democrats are doing anything. They don't even have anyone to run for 2028, mind you. So, we've got to definitely clean house there. But these people, the only thing that's keeping this country together is their own incompetence at destroying it. Anyways, guys, that's the video. Let me know what you guys. No, there is no either or here. Okay, there really isn't. If you want to sit here and still go MAGA and everything after the Epstein files, after the.
All right, guys, shout out to Lucas. That's the amazing Lucas. If you want to watch any more from his channel, we watch both sides over here. Shout out to Bart, because he said, why are we watching this guy? We watch a couple of things over here, Bart, where people say that whether I'm watching CNN or I do my best not to watch MSNBC, but they come on here because, like I say, both sides lie to us to some extent. We got to watch both, and we got to put everything together and figure it out, because at some point, that's what they do. They're not honest with us, right? They just do not tell us the truth, and we got to go find it. So next up, I'm going to grab a clip from Stephen A. Smith. Shout out to AT2. He covered this. Let's take a look at what Stephen A. Smith was talking about.
Any pizza with any toppings for just $9.99 is Domino's best deal ever. Translation for basketball fans, it's like...
This is why it's important for Stephen A. Smith to actually fact check the things that he's saying instead of just blurting out anything. Again, he doesn't care because technically he likes being booked on these shows so he can enrich his own pockets. Honestly, I don't even think it's about the money. I think it's about Stephen A.'s ego, because he believes that he's right, but he's actually wrong. Let's go ahead and play this segment of where he's talking about ICE. And I want to go ahead and fact check the misinformation that he's given in this interview. Here we go, you guys.
Talking. Yeah, you're talking about the border. Yeah, the border needed to be closed, but that was because Biden opened it. If Biden had it opened and followed Obama, who deported more people than Trump did, in Obama's term in office, over 3.1 million people were deported. How come you didn't follow that, Joe Biden? How come you didn't follow that, Democrats? How come it was okay to celebrate ICE at that particular time when when Obama was in office, and you had networks literally traveling with ICE to show you the marvelous work that they were doing, but suddenly Trump is doing it, and now it's a pariah, and ICE needs to go, and it needs to be completely banned. Why are sanctuary cities existing? Why is that? Why do you get to, implement laws that could get you to ignore federal laws? How is that? How does that benefit our country? I'm saying to ask ourselves these questions, to see the difference between a Gavin Newsom and a Governor DeSantis, to see the difference between...
This is the part. This is the part where, like, Stephen A. is driving everybody crazy, because some people who follow him, they're listening to him say this stuff, especially black people, and they're like, God, Stephen A. Smith, shut up. He's a coon. Like, he's getting on our nerves. But this is what I'm saying, guys. He's strategizing, because if the man, and he has not said he's not considering running, right? He said that he's going to make a final decision, I think, early 2027. But he's actually slightly considering running for the presidential race. So he has to strategize. He knows that if he comes out the woodworks like a far left liberal, like, no one's going to vote for him. We already saw what happened in the past election. So Stephen A. Smith is not going to come out talking about, trans women being in women's sports. He's not going to come out supporting children being able to transition. He's not going to come out supporting any of that stuff. If someone brings it up, I think that he'll touch on it. But he seems to want to still be left, but be more center left now. Like, that's the way he's going to strategize if he actually is going to consider running for the presidency, because he knows if he comes at it any other way, it's not going to work. But what he is doing in the meantime is he's pissing a lot of black people off, and some white people, but he's pissing a lot of black people off.
Josh Shapiro and Greg Abbott, to know these kind of things, I think are things that enlighten us as American citizens. And I know that I'm no aficionado, but in the same breath, I read and I'm a conscientious observer and I care. So when I ask a question...
But here's the thing. If you read, you would know better, which you do not know better. And this is the main issue that I have with Stephen A. Smith, because he doesn't know. And it's not like he's asking the professionals like, hey, can you help me to understand this? Mind you, he has the money and the resources. You can't tell me that he doesn't have a staff who can give him proper information. It's the fact that he doesn't give a damn. Because one thing that I can tell you about ICE is that the issue is that one, they're not going through the courts. They're just going and snatching up people that they deem illegal. You know, they deem these people, oh, they have some kind of paperwork going on. Oh, we can get them. We can snatch them up. Sometimes they don't even have a warrant because now with the Lincoln Riley Act, they can literally racial profile you. There's even ICE agents doing traffic stops, which that's not what they're supposed to be doing at all. And they can literally ask for your ID, see who you are, look you up, and all that. They don't have to follow any protocol. And the fact that these agents are quickly hired and then put out in the workforce so quickly after 45 days because Trump was the 45th president. So now they can go into the field within 45 days. Like, that's crazy. Like, there's no actual time for training. These are just random people who they put out in the streets.
So it's different. 45 days. Some people have said 47. I don't care how many days it is. I think this is crazy. I've had so many conversations with people. I hate when people bring up ICE at work because I'm like, here we go. We're going to have this conversation at work. In the workplace, and someone's going to get butthurt because it happens every single time. And they're always asking me like, hey, Q, what do you think about ICE? And I'm like, they're trigger happy and they're paranoid as hell. That's what I think about ICE. Now, granted, this is coming from a trained Marine, so I really don't care what people think about my opinion about ICE because I've already been in war zones. I've been trained. I've trained better than ICE. I didn't come out of anything in 47 days. If anything, you guys, if you know, Marine Corps boot camp is one of the longest boot camps. So it's like they're trigger happy as hell. I'm just saying, you got people saying things like, oh my God, but they're yelling and people are honking horns. And people are throwing water at ICE. And I'm like, and that's supposed to make them so paranoid that they think somebody's going to kill them, so they just shoot the person? Like, come on, bro. They're not, like, the 47, 45 days, whatever amount of time they're training at, it's not good enough. I don't care what anybody says. Like, when we saw, people were so mad when President Trump put the National Guard on the streets in certain cities. But you know what? Guess what the military didn't do? Guess what the National Guard didn't do? We didn't see any civilians getting shot in the face or in the neck, right? We didn't see any civilians getting their gun taken out of the holster, right? And then getting shot in the middle of the street 10 times, right? So it's like, you didn't see the military do that. You see ICE do that. That's why I don't care what anybody says about ICE if they don't like my opinion. They can take ICE in their 45 days and do whatever they want with that.
And they literally act like some kind of terrorist organization. You see them yelling, cussing, being forceful, violent with so many civilians. It's crazy. It's literally crazy. Like, it is not normal. And Stephen A. Smith want to say, oh, well, no one cared when Obama was doing it, blah, blah, blah. Yes, Obama did deport more people than Trump and Biden. However, we're not taking into account that Obama went through the courts. Obama followed the laws. Obama followed the process. Yes, there was a video where you seen somebody following around ICE agents while they were doing warrant checks and stops and stuff like that. You did see that. However, what you did not see was people being shot, beaten. You weren't seeing that. They're not going out in the middle of the streets literally terrorizing neighborhoods. Like, that's not what you seen. It was very calculated operations. And these were people that were actually thoroughly trained. You know, it used to take, 6 months to actually train agents. Now with the 45-day rule, like, you can't get no proper training. Again, a lot of people don't like when you say they're law enforcement, because they actually aren't law enforcement. But I think because of the confusion that happens with police brutality and other things, this is why we just say they're law enforcement. We just all kind of blanket them, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, and I mean, I could get why people are saying that, but I wouldn't even put ICE. I mean, shout out to the chat. Tech support said ICE needs to be abolished. He said Gavin is actively blocking a one-time tax on billionaires. Yeah, I know. I do know that he's blocking that, and that's crazy work. That's and listen, I'm not saying that the Democrats should vote for Gavin. What I am saying is that I do think that If Gavin comes forward, he is one of their best candidates right now. He has a lot of young men that are willing to vote for him. A lot of young men that are actually willing to vote for him over JD Vance. Some of it is for stupid reasoning, but some of it, I guess I can understand why. I mean, he's charismatic. You know, he's Gavin Newsom. It is what it is. He's not running California great at all. I don't think he has a great track record with the state, but like I said, he does that thing where he still has some people that still, fanboy over him. So it is what it is. I mean, I don't know. Like, I think if JD keeps going the route that he's going, he's quiet on a lot of things, and I think he's doing that to be safe. And I can understand why. Like, if he's going to be the one that the Republicans push forward, which of course I think that he will be. The question is who's on the ticket with him, right? So if it's JD and it's Marco, I mean, I don't know. It would depend on who Gavin Newsom brings as his vice president, right? But I mean, I think it's going to be an interesting thing to see because I think for sure that the midterms aren't looking great for the Republicans. And I think that's because just some of the crap we've seen with ICE. So I'm not happy about that, but I do know that ICE is extremely undisciplined. Like, they're just undisciplined. And we have so much access to excess. Like, we can see everything that they're doing. We see all of this stuff on the internet. Like, people are pissed off. So at one point in time, I had a little bit more faith. I said, okay, the Republicans might do okay in the midterms. I'm not so sure now. And there's already been sporadic races around the map where they've lost to the Democratic candidate. So we just have to see how the midterms turn out. Denise said if it was a cop, it wouldn't matter. Yeah, I mean, I can't say. I don't know. You know what? ICE has made me feel like that cops are more disciplined than them. I mean, I think we see situations where cops can seem trigger happy, or maybe they got nervous, or they were a little bit anxious in the situation. But to me, ICE is ridiculous. Like, I wouldn't even classify ICE as cops. Like, I think that they are trigger happy, frantic people. Like, I really think that, and they're scared as hell. And I get that, but I mean, they are not in a war zone. This is why they drive me insane. They are not in a freaking war zone. They are in a city in the middle of a street where there's a neighborhood and there are civilians, and they are not acting like the civilians are the most important people that need to be protected. That's why it's like when I see them, I don't see the military. I don't see police officers. I see just a bunch of undisciplined, untrained, trigger-happy people. That's all I see. I mean, they were trained in 45 days. My opinion really isn't going to change that much about them. Tech Support said, I think he's leading in the polls right now. Yeah, Newsom, I think he is too. There's one poll that actually says like Kamala's kind of leading. I'm like, dude, tell me that poll is lying. That's not true. Because JD's wife is Indian. Yeah, I know that's one of the reasons why they're willing to vote for Gavin Newsom, because you have the likes of, like, if you guys know who Clavicular is, young guy, he's about 20 years old. Nick Fuentes, I react to Nick on the channel pretty often. These young guys, they're willing to vote for Gavin Newsom because according to them, he completely mogs JD Vance, meaning he looks better, he keeps himself up better. His wife is of European descent. They care about these type of things. So you literally have people saying there are reasons why they would vote for Gavin Newsom.
Because again, there's actually police departments who have changed policies and tried to repair the relationship with the neighborhood and communities, but now you have them tied in with these ICE agents. I'm sorry, it's kind of like when they say, when there's one bad apple, it spoils the bunch, right? But also when Stephen A. Smith was mentioning about sanctuary cities, they love to mention that, like, oh, you got these sanctuary cities, they don't want to help ICE and anything like that. Now, here's the thing. More ICE agents or more, more ICE agents in the community or out in the streets do not make it safer. Obviously, we've seen what happened in Minnesota, right? That did not make it safer. If anything, it made it more dangerous, especially because people lost their lives. It made it more dangerous. So with that, knowing that fact, we can go ahead and safely assume, okay, that doesn't work either. But with the sanctuary cities, that's to protect any undocumented people who have a fear about reporting crimes, who have a fear about going to the doctor, who have a fear about putting their name in any kind of system, and fear of being deported. Because again, What they want is just a list of all undocumented people talking about the government, right? DHS. They want a list of undocumented people so they can come snatch them up and deport them. But if you're a contributing member of society, why should you be deported? You should just be deported just because? You know what I mean? And again, the number of criminals that are undocumented.
And shout out to AT2. That's what he's saying. Like, he's saying that is like to Stephen A. Smith's thing when he's saying, like, why are sanctuary cities allowed to exist? That's what AT2 is saying. He's saying they're allowed to exist because you have people here that they're not doing anything illegal. They're not doing anything to harm anybody. They're just kind of going about their day-to-day life. They're not criminals. They're going to work every day. They're paying their bills. And those people should not be deported. So that's why the sanctuary cities do exist. Those people don't even want to report crimes to the police in fear of being deported. That's why they exist. Stephen A. Smith knows this, but this is why I'm saying that he's strategizing if he actually is indeed thinking about even considering this 2028 presidential run. That's why he's saying things like this, because we can go back and we can find times where Stephen A. Smith doesn't agree with people who have no nonviolent criminal history that they're getting deported. He doesn't agree with things like that, but he's strategizing right now.
There's not this large number of 11 million criminals that need to be deported. If you look at the actual statistics compared to undocumented compared to citizens, the citizens overwhelmingly make up more for all the crimes and disparities. Like, immigrants, no, they don't. Like, you cannot make that argument that these undocumented people are causing all the crimes and all that, right? But then again, this is why they have the sanctuary cities, because what if it's a domestic violence situation? The woman or the man might not want to report because they're in fear of being deported themselves, not just the agitator, but the actual person, the victim, might be afraid to actually report it. So again, it keeps the undocumented person safe, and it also keeps, ICE out the streets, because obviously we've seen that they weren't out here killing undocumented immigrants, which I'm not saying that's right either. They were killing citizens, U.S. citizens. Keith Porter, Alex Freddie, Renee Good.
Let me show you something that makes me furious every time I see it. This is a real tax return from someone making $284,900.
And now there was a special education teacher who just lost her life too as well. So is it really improving the safety of the community? And again, going back to this point about, no one cared when Obama was doing it. That's not true, because Obama was heavily criticized. He was called the deporter in chief because he was deporting a lot of people.
Yep, he sure was.
But again, he went through the courts. He went through the judges, which makes it a hell of a lot different than putting people in basically, I would call a detention camp. I don't know what else you call it. The conditions are horrible. People are not getting access to health care like they should. There was even a story last night that I heard watching the People's Union on Joy Reid's channel, where there's someone who's suffering from cancer and they are not getting treatment, and they're trying to help get their loved one out of a detention camp. So again, Stephen A. Smith just rambles off a lot of stuff and not actually look up the information, which again, he has the money, he has the access, and he has the resources to actually get experts on his show, to actually educate him, to actually tell him what's going on. But throwing this whole, these sanctuary cities are protecting criminals. Is that an anecdote, or do you actually know that for a fact? Did you look at the statistics and go like, yes, it's all these criminals and all the criminals are undocumented? Listen, if there was truly an influx of 11 million undocumented criminals in the United States, I guarantee you martial law would have been called by now. It would have been called. I can't imagine a whole bunch of black and brown people running around causing chaos in the streets, 11 million of them, and the government not do anything about it, if that was really true. Those numbers have been hyped up. They have been spiked to try to cause chaos and confusion. And it makes you look like, oh, I'm not getting ahead in life because of all these illegal, undocumented aliens over here. And they're taking our jobs, taking our resources. They're causing all the crime. I can't get any fair housing because of them. But really, it's the people in power. Really, it's the billionaires that are keeping us from being successful. You got to have a poor and you got to have a rich. Unfortunately, you have to have more poor than you can rich. But again, this is information that you can find. This is information that you can look up. Stephen A. Smith chooses not to. He chooses to be a blissful idiot. But hey, he makes more money than I do, so maybe I should just be stupid too, so I can get me $100 million contract. Y'all hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate y'all for being here. And don't forget about our meetup in Vegas, April 10th through the 12th.
Shout out to AT2. You guys go out to Vegas if you can't meet up. Show him some support. Yeah, I mean, like I said, Stephen A. Smith, he's going to piss a lot of people off because you can go back and you can see where he's talking against some of this stuff. And now it seems like some people are like, why does it seem like now he's for this stuff? I don't think he's cooning or he's being a raccoon or things like that. I think he's strategizing. If he's actually going to consider this presidential race, he has to present himself as a reasonable candidate. If he wants to be an extreme liberal, it's just not going to work out for him in his favor, and I think he understands that at this point. All right, guys, so next up, we're going to go to a clip by Bill O'Reilly. He covered, let's go over there real quick. Bill O'Reilly covered, did Trump shift the political momentum? So we're going to take a look at that. And then after that, we're going to go to Bakari Sellers breaks down Trump's State of the Union. Let's actually go to Bakari Sellers first, and then we'll do Bill O'Reilly. So Bill O'Reilly talked about, did Trump shift the political momentum? Bakari Sellers is kind of breaking down the State of the Union and everything that happened and the things that they saw. Scott Jennings is also talking here as well. So let's take a look at what they're talking about here.
And for the final course, we have the fees.
A President's State of the Union to a skeptical nation. Live at the table, Bakari Sellers, Brad Todd, Ken Cuccinelli, Ashley Allison, and Terry Moran. Americans with different perspectives aren't talking to each other, but here they do. Good evening, or should I say good morning for those of us on the East Coast. It is Abby Phillip in Washington, where President Trump just delivered his first State of the Union address of his second term in office. He declared that the United States is winning, despite a nation where a majority disagrees. The speech comes as the White House tries to weather the storms on multiple fronts. The economy is by far the most important issue, and voters are giving him a failing grade. The Supreme Court dealt a major blow to his tariff policy, and he is as unpopular as ever, according to recent polling. The Epstein files, potential Iran strikes, affordability issues, they are all dominating the news cycles. And public opinion of his campaign's signature immigration policies have completely flipped. But tonight, he challenged Democrats on that issue.
So tonight I'm inviting every legislator to join with my administration in reaffirming a fundamental principle. If you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. Isn't that a shame? You should be ashamed of yourself not standing up. You should be ashamed of yourself.
So that was, in the room, at the very least, the biggest applause line moment from the president's supporters. How does it play back home, I think, becomes the biggest question. Is that going to play...
Ashamed of yourself. is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. Isn't that a shame? You should be ashamed of yourself not standing up. You should be ashamed of yourself.
See, it's like, regardless of how, this is where I can't do it. Like, it's like, regardless of how they feel about President Trump, that's crazy work. Like, to do that while the president is talking, it's like, dude, you don't like him, okay? You don't like the fact that he says he's more for American people than immigrants. I get it. But I mean, all of the shouting and all of the interruptions, I'm like, dude, like sometimes these Democrats act like children. Like, I can't do it, bro.
So that was in the room, at the very least, the biggest applause line moment from the president's supporters. How does it play back home, I think, becomes the biggest question. Is that going to play the way that I think it plays on the MAGA base? Is it going to be important, or are the other things important?
Well, I wrote down one line above all tonight, and that was when he said, these people are crazy, in reference to Democrats. It's true that midterm elections tend to cut against the president's party. But in the end, the opposition has a bar to clear. Democrats have to prove they're not crazy, because voters in 2024 said they thought the Democratic Party was too far out of the mainstream. I think Democrats made a mistake in the hall tonight. They didn't all uniformly rise up and cheer the hockey team. They didn't all uniformly rise up and cheer the heroes in the gallery, and they should have stood and clapped with that statement.
Yeah, I mean, I hear it. I think that what people saw tonight was a president. First of all, I think the bar is in hell for Donald Trump. I've said it multiple times. I want to say it again. The president of the United States is aged. He's old. He's incompetent. His subjects and verbs, they fight often. He's not a great orator. I mean, there is nothing comparable to Barack Obama. There's nothing comparable to George W. Bush. There's nothing even comparable to Joe Biden in terms of oratory and what you saw tonight. So that's first. The second thing is, like, I understand the pomp and circumstance of the State of the Union, but most Americans are beyond that. And look, okay, Democrats didn't stand up for this. They didn't clap for that. I didn't necessarily like Ilhan Omar shouting out during the speech. I mean, but what are we juxtaposing that against? We're juxtaposing that against Renee Good being murdered in the street. There's nothing even, the bar is in hell for Donald Trump. I've said it multiple times. I want to say it again. The president of the United States is aged. He's old. He's incompetent. His subjects and verbs, they fight often. He's not a great orator. I mean, there is nothing comparable to Barack Obama. There's nothing comparable to George W. Bush. There's nothing even comparable to Joe Biden in terms of oratory and what you saw tonight. So that's first. The second thing is, like, I understand the pomp and circumstance of the State of the Union, but most Americans are beyond that. And look, okay, Democrats didn't stand up for this. They didn't clap for that. I didn't necessarily like Ilhan Omar shouting out during the speech. I mean, Democrats didn't stand up for this. They didn't clap for that stance of the State of the Union, but most Americans are beyond that. And look, okay, Democrats didn't stand up for this. They didn't clap for that. I didn't necessarily like Ilhan Omar shouting out during the speech. I mean, but what are we juxtaposing that against? We're juxtaposing that against Renee Good being murdered in the street. We're juxtaposing that against Preddy dying, shot multiple times in the street. So yeah, I get it. Democrats didn't stand up when he said that line. But the fact is, Donald Trump is killing Americans. People are tired of the National Guard in their cities, in their streets. ICE and Border Patrol, Corey Lewandowski, Kristi Noem, incompetent from the top down. So, I mean, I get it. And the showmanship is one thing, but the utter incompetence that people are feeling every day, I think that is what's going to win or rue the day. Rue the day, I think, is the SAT word I'm looking for.
I guess the thing is, everybody knows it's a gotcha moment, right? And it was intended to be that way. But at the end of the day, the president is still very unpopular. He is underwater on the issue of immigration enforcement. And when we asked people who watched this speech what they thought about the speech, 38% said they had a very positive view of what Trump said. That is the worst performance of any president at this stage in their presidency, going all the way back to George W. Bush. So again, moments like this, how much do they matter? And is it smart for Republicans to put so much weight on something like that when other things might matter more to Americans?
Well, he started with the economy, and I disagree with Bakari. I mean, we're sitting in Washington, D.C. The mayor of Washington, D.C. said the National Guard helped lower crime and make people safer. So there's plenty of Democrats who've supported the president's efforts in those regards. And interestingly, when you flash forward to Abigail Spanberger started with 3 questions. One of them was, is this president keeping you safer? It was interesting. She asked 3 questions that I thought the answer to was all favorable to the president. She didn't touch the immigration issue. What you asked about, and the president started, interestingly, something we don't hear very much. He started out with an emphatic embrace of legal immigration. And he made that point very clear. And I think we all knew he was going to move on to illegal immigration. But it's worth making that point. And having worked for him, I can tell you, he is extremely pro legal immigration. But he has come into this second term, just as he said he would, and been more aggressive than any other president in our lifetimes in dealing with illegal immigration. And that sometimes has negative consequences. There'll never be a perfect policy. But he wanted to redraw that line tonight. And I think it's one of those 70-30 issues that differentiates the Republicans from the Democrats going into the midterm. And yes, it can be rough sometimes, but when you boil it down on concept, the people of this country are with the president on that issue.
Well,
Switch to TurboTax.
He's not completely wrong.
File free in
back to that because he's not. I don't think he's wrong.
Legal immigration, and he made that point.
Like at this,
that I thought
at this point we might not like a couple of things that we see, but it's like no. Like I would say yeah. So the 2 things can be true at once. We do see the president's popularity, depending on what poll you're actually paying attention to, dropping. We see that, right? But we also see that this is something that the country gave him a mandate for, right? This is something that a lot of the country standing behind him on. Like they still want to see this happen. They might not like the way it's happening. They might not like his approach towards it. A lot of people might hate ICE right now. But I would say that this gentleman is very right about that. Like he does have a lot of support, at least in the area of immigration still.
the answer to was all favorable to the president. She didn't touch the immigration issue. What you asked about, and the president started, interestingly, something we don't hear very much. He started out with an emphatic embrace of legal immigration. And he made that point very clear. And I think we all knew he was going to move on to illegal immigration. But it's worth making that point. And having worked for him, I can tell you, he is extremely pro legal immigration. But he has come into this second term, just as he said he would, and been more aggressive than any other president in our lifetimes in dealing with illegal immigration. And that sometimes has negative consequences. There'll never be a perfect policy. But he wanted to redraw that line tonight. And I think it's one of those 70-30 issues that differentiates the Republicans from the Democrats going into the midterm. And yes, it can be rough sometimes, but when you boil it down on concept, the people of this country are with the president on that issue.
Well, I think that Republicans probably feel more confident tonight because it wasn't an utter disaster. Like, he talked for the longest State of the Union he's ever given, and I wasn't like pulling my hair out of my head. And and you're laughing because you know it's true, because sometimes you pull your hair out of your head when your guy talks too. And that didn't happen tonight. And because of that, you take a little victory lap. But the reality is, most people probably didn't even watch the speech. They will see some clips. Your base will see the clips they want. My base will see the clips they want. And Americans still won't be able to afford the cost of living in this country. And until that changes, running down a laundry list of economic goods and bads just won't matter. People, we've already learned this lesson. It is really hard to change the way people feel day to day. And people feel, it's not just that they feel like they can't afford it. The stress that you live with in your body when you're like, are my lights staying on? Am I going to have enough gas to get to my kids' school to pick them up? That is real. That is exhausting. And so every day when you wake up a little more tired, and then you have to pull your hair out of your head because the president is talking crazy too the next day, tonight was a win, tomorrow won't be, people sometimes want to turn the page on that.
Donald Trump has a genius for setting us against each other. And what that was a moment where he was asking people to choose between your neighbor who is a United States citizen and your neighbor or the person who drives your Uber or the roofer who did your house or whatever, who's not a U.S. citizen. Most of us don't want to do that. And Donald Trump has done something I didn't think he would be able to do. He's lost his mojo on immigration. He was the strongest president and candidate and spokesperson for a certain approach to immigration, and he's upside down on it.
Now, the reason why I say that, that's why I said he still has some support here. But this gentleman is right about that. But I think a lot of that has to do with our access to excess, right? Like, we could see a lot of the stuff that Obama was doing. We saw some of it, but not the way that we're seeing it right now with ICE, right? So that's why I think he's so upside down on it, because people are literally pissed about what they're seeing. We don't have to do research. We don't have to try to figure this out or look into a glass ball. People are like, dude, ICE is disgusting. They're not trained. They're trigger happy. They're annoying. They're killing people in the street. That's pissing people off. Like, this is the reason why now American citizens are now trashing ICE property and ICE vehicles, because literally they're just pissed off. I think that's why Trump is upside down on immigration, because just the things that we see ICE doing.
Because we are a decent people, right? We don't want to see nannies tackled in the street, working men ripped out of their cars. We don't want to see more than 100 U.S. citizens arrested and incarcerated without even being read their rights, disappeared without access to lawyers. Any other president done that, there'd be impeachments. And I think he has succeeded in alienating people that he had in his pocket.
So I think you suggested that the Democrats didn't talk about immigration, but let me play what Abigail Spanberger said about the immigration issue, drawing a contrast between where Democrats are and where Trump are on this issue.
Begin a career that is full of possibilities at Allstate Career School.
Our president told us tonight that we are safer because these agents arrest mothers and detain children. Think about that. Our broken immigration system is something to be fixed, not an excuse for unaccountable agents to terrorize our communities.
So first, my point was she led with 3 questions, and immigration wasn't one of the 3. So I heard her later comment.
But do you see what's happening here, which is that Trump, I think, would be winning if the contrast were just between his desire to rid the country of hardened criminals and Democrats doing nothing. But that's not actually what the contrast is here. The contrast is what we saw in Minneapolis. And that's what people are remembering. Alex Preddy and Renee Good, not mentioned today. Should he have brought them up?
No, I don't think he should have brought them up. And not from his perspective.
Well, why not? Though? Why can you use the lives of some?
Yeah, no. Like, I would agree with that. I don't think that President Trump should have brought them up, and I didn't think that he was. So we did live stream the State of the Union address just like we did last year over here. I don't think that he should have brought them up, and I didn't think that he would. And I don't think that it would have worked well in his favor if he did. These Democrats barely stood for anything. They did stand sometimes. They stood more this year than they did last year, believe it or not. But I definitely think that things would have went south if he would have brought up any of the people that were killed by ICE. I don't think that would have worked in his favor at all. So I'm actually glad that he didn't do that, but I didn't think he would.
To score political points, but not use the lives of others. So my question is, why does Donald Trump get to determine the value of American lives?
He doesn't.
Well,
Donald Trump does. No, Donald Trump gets to determine what Donald Trump says.
Well,
that's what Donald Trump
I think
gets
we're making
to
the same
determine.
point. Yeah.
No, I don't think we're making anything near the same point in this, Bakari. The error rate for ICE under President Trump is 1/3 of the error rate under President Obama.
What do you mean by error rate? Are you meaning
I'm referring back to Terry's comment, for example, of picking up people who don't have a basis to be picked up. First of all, there have been 170, last time I looked, Americans arrested by ICE citizens. 130 plus of those were correct arrests. American citizens participate in illegal immigration,
Do you agree?
including Renee Good. And that was an ugly, terrible situation.
The comparison to
You're
Barack
accusing
Obama's
Renee Good of
false.
participating in illegal immigration?
Wait a
I mean,
minute,
I think
wait a minute.
Obstructing law enforcement.
There's a difference,
all
but,
of those,
but there's
all
a
of
difference
those.
between protest and what you're
And-
talking about. And I think also
right, and
that
obstructing and stalking
when we're
law
talking about people who are picked up by immigration officers, federal immigration officers, I think the U.S. citizens, that's an important point. But there are actually a lot of there's a broader universe of people. People who committed no crimes, people who are going to their green card interviews on they're at their final interview to get their green card, people who are here on a legal basis, they're refugees, they're asylum seekers, they have communication with the government that has given them work permits and said you're in the process.
They're going to
That is part of what, look, at this point, I think Americans now are seeing the underbelly of what this can look like, what those mistakes look like. And that's why Trump is doing so poorly on this issue. And there was no acknowledgement of that in this speech. The trying to score political points, again, it seems like that works really well for the MAGA crowd. But the American people are basically saying, you told us you were going to go after criminals, and you're doing way more than that, and we don't like it.
I'll agree with you that
beyond that.
I'll agree with you that this administration has needed a correction to focus a lot less on collaterals and a lot more on criminal, violent, illegal immigrants, which the president tonight did that in his speech. He said that he was going to focus on criminal, illegal immigrants. He also faulted the Democrats correctly for leaving the border open. He took credit for sealing the border. We've had virtually no crossers illegally since he became president. That's a major accomplishment because it was just a year ago Democrats assured us you could not do that unless you changed the law. And we did it by just changing the president.
You know, if you'd stopped there, it would be a different political story.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point, is that
Because nothing's happening and the successes happen.
No.
So it's not in the news.
No. I think if you would have stopped there, you would have been winning on this issue right now. I think when you start ripping nannies out of their homes, babies are getting detained, people don't like to see that. We already lived, let me just finish, we already lived through that in the first Trump administration. And that was when we saw babies in cages crying, and your numbers started to take on immigration. So you are living a Groundhog Day again, because you're trying to get too cute on the issue. But the problem is, the reason why Democrats didn't stand in that moment, yes, I think every American citizen, including the Democrats in that chamber, believe that the first duty of elected officials is to protect American citizens. But the context in which that statement was made was that there was an ignoring of the life of an American citizen, Alex Preddy, and the protect American citizens. But the
U.S., right? Trump's there's people that feel like that they're poorly trained agents, and that's what they're doing. They're terrorizing the U.S. Why? Because police officers and military understand that civilians are the most important thing. They're not the people you go kill.
context in which that statement was made was that there was an ignoring of the life of an American citizen, Alex Preddy, and the ignoring of American citizen Renee Good, and that is what Ilhan Orban. That is what Ilhan Orban.
No. There's also the ignoring of the lives of Laken Riley and people who've been victims. The Democrats should stand for that sentence. Full stop. But they cannot give Donald Trump credit for anything. For anything. And they would be better off if they
you know this. You know this. I mean, Addie asked an amazing question, and Ken dodged it and said it was his prerogative. But I mean, if you were advising him, you would tell him to mention the names of Alex Preddy or Renee Good. The problem is that what we're not acknowledging is that Donald Trump cannot simply say 2 words or 3 words.
Is on the matter. His stance on the matter matters. So I don't think his advisors can say, Mr. President, you need to bring up these people that were shot or that were killed by ICE. I don't think that that's smart at all, and I think that's why he didn't bring it up. I don't think that would have worked in his favor. The Democrats were already riled up. If he would have did that, things would have went south quick.
Which is I messed up. Like he cannot admit fault. Like the psychopathy in Donald Trump, and you talk about Democrats all the time. Well, let me diagnose Republicans. The psychopathy of Donald Trump is that he has a fundamental inability to admit fault. The fact is, ICE and Border Patrol killed Americans. They've ripped 5-year-olds out of their homes. They've ripped nannies out of their homes. They've ripped people who are everyday citizens. The difference between Donald Trump and Barack Obama is Barack Obama made a concerted effort against Tier 1 hardened criminals, and he
Yeah, Chanel, my fault about that. Sometimes the sound is doubled, or you guys will hear me fast forward it, and they'll start talking faster. I got to do it for copyright reasons. So you have to kind of alter the sound in some way, shape, or form, or else YouTube will clip you for that.
Deported them from the country. Donald Trump has an inability to do that. And that's exactly what he wants.
Let me also what the president said today. And this is actually, I think, one of the moments that produced a reaction from some of the Democratic members on the other side of the aisle. And it has to do with the Somali fraud investigations in Minnesota.
The Somali pirates who ransacked Minnesota remind us that there are large parts of the world where bribery, corruption, and lawlessness are the norm, not the exception. Importing these cultures through unrestricted immigration and open borders brings us problems right here to the USA. And it is the American people who pay the price in higher medical bills, car insurance rates, rent, taxes, and perhaps most importantly, crime. We will take care of this problem. We're going to take care of this problem. We are not playing games.
What if I told you that I built a multi-million-dollar business working only a couple hours a day? Now I can't guarantee.
I think the thing I think about is if the president were talking about any other part of the world, he said, people from France, we can't import them here because their culture is incompatible with us. Wouldn't that be something that people said was pretty far across the line? I mean, he's calling Somali people pirates based off of what exactly?
Well, there are pirates.
Hold on a second. He said the Somali pirates who ransacked Minnesota. So he's describing Somali people just in general as pirates because there happen to be pirates in Somalia?
He's calling people who are raiding Medicaid funds illegally pirates, which I think that's actually a pretty good metaphor for what it means to set up a fraudulent daycare center and take money from Medicaid illegally.
Okay, so you were aware that I was just going to say that in fact the first person
Citizens.
The problem that I have.
Let me just make a point because I think you're trying to again. There's a little bit of whitewashing happening because he's literally saying that they're importing a culture of bribery, corruption, and lawlessness. Is that what's actually happening here, or are there individuals who are criminals and should be prosecuted? Is this an indictment on an entire culture of people?
He wants to make it an indictment. He really hates Somalia. I think we can say that. We can agree on that. He hates that place. I think he hates it partly because one of their citizens is in the United States Congress. Somebody who's born there is in the United States Congress. And infuriates. He hates Somalia. You can feel it. It comes off of him. But the notion that the 66,000 people of Somali descent who live in Minnesota are responsible for what happened in the fraud cases is bigoted. It's racist. And I think that's what people sense.
But I also doubt you could even point Somalia out on the map. Or
come on.
I mean,
you're getting pretty far afield.
So that's a red line for you, not the president maligning country of people, especially. Let's also be clear that the Somali population in Minnesota, a majority of them are Americans. So, I guess my question to you is, are you okay with the president painting with a broad brush an entire...
And that part is true. A lot of people might like that, and some people didn't even want to agree to it, but that part is true. And they came out with those statistics very early on. A lot of the people in Somalia, they do actually already have their citizenship. I know you guys are going to hear echoes. Sometimes you're going to actually hear me speed it up because I have to do that for copyright purposes.
Their culture of people, is that what we do as Americans?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I understood it.
We did it Irish. We did it as Sicilian.
All right.
It is in law. And the word values is used. Look, I ran the illegal immigration agency. This is supposed to be part of the vetting process.
So when we look back on American history, and we look back at how Americans and Catholics were treated and Jews were treated, you think that that's justified because culture is a valid reason to decide whether someone ought to have a chance to be an American or not?
No, and you've connected things that aren't connected.
How is that not connected?
So
our immigration
system
used to legally discriminate against Catholics, Italians, Jews, Irish, you name it. Under the guise of culture. You're saying it's fine for the Somalis. Is it fine for those groups of people too?
No. We're a Western nation. Our foundation is a Judeo-Christian Western civilization philosophy.
Built on slavery.
Those
And an indigenous land.
Those cultures fit in this country. And when I say fit, I mean values.
Which cultures?
Similarly Western culture.
Chinese Americans out. Japanese Americans out.
Here they are.
We have the Republican Party.
The Republican Party seems to have lost faith in the revolutionary ideal of this country. It doesn't matter the color of your skin or what country ever you color. That's true. True. Make America. But in a country like Somalia or Syria or Afghanistan, you cannot vet individuals coming from those countries. You cannot do it.
So
it can't be done.
You're shifting it now because you were saying before that it was about culture. Now you're saying it's about vetting. So if it's about culture and it's about who's Western enough for you, to Terry's point, are we then saying that if you are from India, you are from China, you're from South Korea, you're just not Western enough? Your culture is not compatible with this country.
That is not what American law says.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand how you all are trying to justify.
Wait a minute.
But listen. We do have to take a quick break. We got to continue the conversation. We will get to it, I promise. After a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm going to go straight to Brad because we were in the middle of a discussion about who is allowed.
All right, so I want us to take a look at this immigration, economy, and partisanship. A heated debate on Trump's policies. So shout out to Bakari Sellers. We react to Bakari. We were just on there. I just want to take a look at this because they are going to also do some talking about tariffs on here. I'm not sure if they're going to address the State of the Union again, but there were some things about tariffs that they talked about, and I wanted us to take a look at this.
out in this country and who's not. You were saying.
The president said it tonight. I actually took it down as a note. He said, people who will love our country will come here and work hard. That's who we want. I think he might add, follow our laws, assimilate into our culture. That's what's always been the ingredient for Americans who came here, whether you're my forebears who came from Scotland or Kins who came from Italy, is you have to come to America, assimilate into American culture, work hard, take America as your own country, leave your prior country behind. That's what.
Can I just say that's flat out wrong? And that's utter BS. First of all, there is a difference between coming to this country and absorbing all of the greatness of this country and the opportunity of this country and maintaining the values that you bring with you, maintaining the dignity that you bring with you. Black folk were stripped of absolutely everything. But all we had was hope and faith. We didn't come here to assimilate. We were brought here in chains. There was no assimilation. So let's get that absolutely correct. And there also is a line between talking about immigration and being outwardly racist. And what we're doing here is we're kind of beating around the bush because what Donald Trump does with Somalians is utter racism. And if he did it one time, then we can excuse it. But he called these people filthy. He called them animals. He said all they do, and we get into this thing where we say now that we have to become westernized, that you have to come here and assimilate. No. You say that you want Norwegians. You say you want white South Africans. You call African countries shithole countries. You poo-poo on Haiti. Like, let's be extremely clear about what we're talking about in this administration. And I think there is a refreshing. People finally. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when racists were like in the closet. But now, it's out, and I'm okay with that. I know what I'm dealing with.
But also, if there was an assimilation, it would be the Western culture, it would be the Native American culture. Because y'all are visitors too here, if we want to be clear. But we don't talk about that. We erase them, we put them on reservations, we try and give them tribal sovereignty, and their community also was decimated by people who came and tried to get them to assimilate. It wasn't just that we were stripped of everything. If we wanted as black people to keep our culture, we were killed, we were lynched, we were beaten, our families were torn apart. Does that bring any of those things ring true to sound like some things that might be happening now? People are being killed. Families are being torn apart. There is no the beauty of America used to be as a melting pot. It used to be the thing where
that's what assimilation is. That's not
No. You want America to be this carpet. It's not. It's a quilt. Jesse Jackson literally told you what America was. It's a quilt. It's different patches that are sewn together. This is what his life was. I don't understand how we don't understand history.
Well, look, I just to bring this back to why we're even talking about this. I think the question of what is the correct vision of this country is really part of what is up for grabs right now. And the fact of the matter is that if the American people saw it the way that Donald Trump did, I don't think we would be having this conversation. I don't think this would even be an issue. He would be popular on the issue of how he's handling immigration, and he's not. A lot of Americans are either themselves immigrants, they have ties to immigrants, they live in mixed status homes. Immigration is something that is actually deeply tied to this country. You said you're Italian. I live in New York. There's a little Italy in New York where people are still celebrating their Italian heritage, still flying Italian flags. They're proud of where they came from. They go back to their home country. They don't forget that that's where they came from. So again, a question of do the American people believe in this, I think it's called this heritage American idea that some on the MAGA right want to put forward, which is this idea that if you don't tie your American identity back to the Mayflower, you're not really American.
No, the left wants to make this binary, and that's what I'm hearing here. Either you're a racist or you're for open borders. And that is not the real world. And that is not Donald Trump. He spoke favorably, as Brad noted, for hardworking people who love this country to come to this country. That's who we want to come to this country. That's who Donald Trump wants to come to this country. And it was always true. And to your point, Abby, it's playing out that the idea of enforcing immigration law is easier to support than when cameras are following around the actual enforcement of immigration law. And because we're all human beings, and these are human beings, they may be on the wrong side of the law,
but it's also common sense,
they still have. Well, let's just finish this one point. We have this. We all have, I hope, a heart for other people. But there is also, we've crossed this. We long ago crossed this line with millions and millions and millions of people being allowed in illegally and being given various statuses, many of them. And so how do you solve that problem? Well, you solve that problem by returning them home.
Well, I don't know that Americans agree that you solve that problem by treating visa overstays the same way you treat somebody who murdered someone on the street. Because, in this administration, they are. And that's part of the problem. Because let me give you another example, and I'll let you respond to it. Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State, his grandfather came over to this country illegally and was ordered to be deported, did not leave, and was granted asylum in one of the waves of asylum in this country, and now here he is, and Marco Rubio is the Secretary of State. I think Americans understand that in theory, like to your point, they approve of dealing with the immigration system. They think it's broken. But when you ask them, should you deport somebody who's been here for 20 years? Should you deport somebody who's working hard, hasn't broken any laws? They say no.
Because they understand that there's a cartoon version of immigration which is being peddled by Donald Trump and the Republican Party. This notion that we'll take people who want to work hard, we'll take people who want to have decent lives. The vast majority of immigrants, legal and illegal, are those people, and they always have been. And this notion that only heritage Americans have this culture, the fundamental truth about the American people. Well, that's what they're saying. Some people are saying in the Republican Party that you have to be able to trace your roots back to whatever the Mayflower or to some culture of what the 17th century. Most Americans are normal. They don't have grand theories of everything. They don't have apocalyptic mythos where we are.
Can I ask you a question though? If you did, because when we said that people who are like going to their appointments for their immigration status, they are getting detained and deported. That is happening. There's video of that happening. You said no. But if you found out that they were, would you have a problem with that? Do you think that is how it should be working?
Right now, if you're suggesting that people who are here legally are being picked up as if they're here illegally, then yeah, I would want that fixed.
I would answer your question very directly. There are people who are coming to their appointments who are working within the system. They have overstayed their visa. They are technically deportable. They've been adjudged deportable, and they're being detained. That is happening. I don't know how high the error rate is. I think that's a bad policy administration. I don't think it is helping them. I think that the president has all the credibility in the world on this issue. He ran on it. The system was broken, and Joe Biden made it worse. And he was elected to fix it. I think he can maintain that confidence by making sure that's not happening, and that he's spending all his effort on people who are violent criminals, people who have come in twice, even twice for a felon, and those people should be deported as well. But they have to do a good job of separating those two.
All right, I think we've come to a good place on that topic. I do want to talk about something else that President Trump spent some time on. He also used his speech to tout his economic accomplishments, but the question is, will it be enough to ease Americans' concerns about affordability? Here's what he had to say.
12 months ago, I had just inherited a nation in crisis with a stagnant economy, inflation at record levels. Gasoline, which reached a peak of over $6 a gallon, is now below $2.30 a gallon in most states. In 12 months, I secured commitments for more than $18 trillion pouring in from all over the globe. The tariffs paid for by foreign countries.
Okay, everyone. They're not paid for by foreign countries.
We're paid
Americans are paying for them. It is interesting, though, that
gas thing was a lie too, just FYI.
Yeah, that is also true. At least it's a gross overstatement. It's a gross overstatement. It's a gross overstatement. Why is the president, Terry, doubling down on, especially on tariffs, a deeply unpopular policy the Supreme Court just said was illegal?
Because he's always believed in it. He has a vision of America with belching smokestacks and factories and trade surplus that is basically from his teenage years, like 50 years ago, 60 years ago. And that's what he's committed to. The problem is that he did it unlawfully, and he's doing it unlawfully again. These new tariffs, 15% global tariffs, they're unbalanced payments deficits. His own lawyer in the Supreme Court told the Supreme Court that would be illegal if we were using Section 122. John Sauer said that to the Supreme Court, and Trump has now done it again. So it's just a matter of time because these are illegal, and they are paid for by the American people. As Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent himself let the cat out of the bag the other day, and somebody asked him about how would a refund of all these things, the American people aren't going to see that money. Admitting we're paying.
I mean, you've seen the studies come out. I think that the average American has paid $1,000 because of these tariffs. I mean, the fact is, you talked about the border and that Donald Trump was hired to fix the border. I mean, he was also hired to fix the economy. And I love this because one of the things Republicans have done since I've been born, I was born in 1984, but Republicans always tout themselves as being the strongest on the economy. But what we've seen them do, president after president after president, is actually raise the deficit. What we've seen them do is have things that cause inflation. I mean, the last time we had a balanced budget in this country was William Jefferson Clinton. Right? That was the last Republican Congress. Who was the president? A Republican Congress. You're right. So imagine what you have now. You have a Republican Congress, a Republican House, a Republican Senate, and a Republican president.
And the president, listen, if you listen to this speech, you would not be blamed for thinking that the policy was tariff and spend. Because the revenue raising was going to be coming from tariffs, which are coming from Americans. And he's talking about putting $1,000 in Americans' 401k plans. We don't know where that money is coming from. He's touting his Trump accounts for Americans. He's touting all kinds of things that will cost money. But not really explaining how that's fiscally responsible or where the money is going to come from, or even how he's going to get Congress to do it.
I love these questions that only arise when there's a Republican president. Listen. He
is a Republican, right? I mean, is this not the mantra of Republicans that Democrats are fiscally irresponsible, they just want to spend? Trump is spending, and he is also taxing, because tariffs are a tax.
And one of the things he says about the tariffs is that they are knocking down the deficit. Scott Bessent talks about this quite a bit as well.
Where?
That's tax increase on us.
How? So tell me how.
Because they'd be borrowing more than project to.
The impact on the deficit is very small. And it'll be even smaller. Yes, it is very small. And it'll be even smaller given that they have to curtail some of the tariffs. But actually, to your point, I mean, Trump said he said that he wants tariffs to replace the income tax.
Right.
Which is not, he would like that. That is imaginary math. That is not a real thing. How are you comfortable with the president wanting a policy that is based on something that is fiscally impossible?
So I started as one of those free trade Republicans that thought there shouldn't be, we should let anybody do anything. And then I traveled around Virginia and saw the consequences of that, including the wipeout of the entire southern tier of Virginia and a good part of the western tier of Virginia. And Donald Trump's efforts to return balance in fairness to trade is something that I think Americans support. And it's something we're seeing in the drug price. One of his accomplishments that he touted is to stop Americans from subsidizing the rest of the world's lower drug prices. And that's been a success. And I think that he believes, and I think a lot of us believe, that we can move in that direction on trade more generally, and tariffs are.
I agree with you, Ken. I think that there is one silver lining for the president's address tonight. I think that there is bipartisan support. And we saw the $30 cap that came under Democrats on insulin prices. We saw the Republican Congress mess with that. But we do believe, I mean, you have Mark Cuban and Donald Trump singing from the same sheet of music on lowering pharmaceutical drug prices. I think that those type of things, I wish that you could have a gang of 8 to get in a room, fortify this, and talk about those things. But also, you have those things which are what America should be, how we should legislate. Get in a room, fix that problem. We agree on those things. And then you have this fantasy world. Because I do believe, Ken, and Brad, that you guys still are waiting on your Doge checks to come. I don't know if you remember that. But the same president promised you $1,000 Doge check from the savings that Elon Musk was going to provide.
And instead, more Americans have to pay
Everybody in America who pays taxes, their paycheck this February is better than it would have been if Democrats had been in charge. Every Democrat wanted to raise taxes on every taxpayer in America. They all voted for it. Every one of them. Whether you take standard deduction, whether it's your income at the very lowest bracket, every Democrat was going to have those taxes go up last month. Donald Trump talked about that today. He hasn't talked about that much this year. It's really one of his two signature accomplishments. And I thought one of the outcomes tonight that was most important was he talked about some of these things that he has done. Auto loan deductibility. That's the first time thing he's done. What he did with prescription drugs through direct buying. That's the thing that he hasn't talked about a lot. I think maybe him spending more time talking about why he's doing things and who the American people are the heroes. I think that was one of the upshots tonight.
Can I say
tax bill being
three things? One. Maybe their checks will look better, but they have to then go spend it on health care that is more expensive now. First. Two, we try to run down the facts and tell people that it's better. It doesn't work. If people don't know it's better, they don't believe it's better. They don't agree with it. We try. It doesn't work. If I was advising Donald Trump on the tariff thing, it is. Democrats support and have supported tariffs in the past. But I don't take that Supreme Court decision as a win and back off of policy. At least until midterms, if I was advising him. And say it's not my fault. I'm trying to do it. It's not blame the court, but his unwillingness to just take his foot off the pedal is going to drive him right off the ledge.
Well, okay, to that very point, let me just play this because it's kind of apropos of what you're talking about. Trump basically made the argument today that all that's happening right now is just straight up winning for the American people. Let's listen.
Our country is winning again. In fact, we're winning so much that we really don't know what to do about it. People are asking me, please, Mr. President, we're winning too much. We can't take it anymore. We're not used to winning in our country. Until you came along, we're just always losing, but now we're winning too much. And I say, no, you're going to win again. You're going to win big. You're going to win bigger than ever.
Okay, I don't know what polls he's looking at, but that's not what the ones that I've seen say.
Well, I mean, he's a salesman. And that was a sales pitch. To credit my administration making everything great. And of course it's not, right? And not only we aren't winning at home, but that winning the way he wants to do it has alienated us and weakened our power and our alliances probably permanently. And listen to the issues we're talking about here. We're talking about free trade. We're talking about immigration. We're talking about all these things that the Congress should be dealing with, right? We're talking about the cost of the government. These are things that we have a broken Congress that won't do anything. And his approach is chaotic and insane.
We have the Congress is broken because Democrats will not allow anything to move on the floor. The Senate. The House my job is to make. But let's assign if you had 7 Democrats willing to vote for things they campaign on, let's go back.
I actually think that's a bit of a cop-out because the president isn't even going to Congress.
Yes, exactly.
But one thing if he said, I want Congress to do all of these things. He's saying, I'm not even going to bother going to them on it. And the question I have for you is that part of the problem? It almost feels to me like the American people see through some of this stuff. They don't trust the executive orders. They know they're temporary. They also see loopholes the size of a truck when it comes to some of these policies. That deductibility on car interest only applies, as the president said, to American-made cars. I'm just pointing out that it doesn't apply to everyone, right? The no taxes on Social Security that he keeps claiming is not no taxes on Social Security. It's a $6,000 deduction. A majority of Social Security recipients are going to be paying taxes. No taxes on tips. There are limits to it. So people are seeing the limits of what Trump claims to be doing and how it's not actually impacting them. I think that. Don't you think it's part of the problem is that he's not even going to Congress and saying, let's make this real. Let's make this
all those things came from Congress, and I think I would call those progress. Much like when Joe Biden tariffed electric cars from China and preferenced those. I mean, Democrats thought that was progress. There's a housing bill that went through the U.S. House of Representatives 390 to 9. We don't talk much about things that are bipartisan. That's going to go to the Senate and die. Because Chuck Schumer's not going to let it come to the floor. And so there are opportunities for us to work together. There are opportunities. And the U.S. House is, frankly, with a one-seat majority, Mike Johnson's doing a hell of a job actually moving anything through. It's hard to get Republicans to approve the journal with a one-seat majority, for God's sake. So I think we have to assess blame where it is. I agree with you that Donald Trump should go to the Congress and wheel more. He didn't have a whole lot of luck that first term. And frankly, you saw it when Democrats won't stand up for heroes in the gallery. You have to accept that maybe he would agree they're not going to help him with that.
I don't know what Republicans really want. And this is going to be a problem. This is going to be a problem. That argument, I think, is going to fail in November. Because you asked the American people to give you the House and the Senate to fix the problems that Joe Biden gave this country. Then the American people gave you the House and the Senate to fix the problems that Joe Biden did. And now you're saying it's still Democrats' fault.
You want to are you going to take your
I don't think leadership is an option, and I think that's my point. I think that the American public is tired of this act that we call showmanship. I think that, or salesman, as you call it. That's right. Because when you get up there and you hear that 15, 20-second clip of...
And to Bakari's point, I would say shout out to Bakari because this is on his channel. You know, there are things the American people are tired of. That's why we see the president's approval rating dropping. And I think it's going to continue to drop as long as we see some of the things we're seeing with ICE. I think it's going to continue to drop as long as the economy continues to feel unaffordable for people. And unfortunately, that's just kind of where we're at with it, right? So right now, we see the favorability rating dropping. It is what it is. I think a lot of that's also ICE. You know, some of the things that we're seeing with ICE, people don't like. People are generally, they are genuinely pissed off about some of this stuff. So it is what it is when it comes to the president's approval rating. We can't change that. I can tell you right now because of it, though, and some of the things that I'm noticing. When it comes to midterms, I'm like, you know, it's a good chance the Democrats are going to be able to slide in there and take something. It just is what it is at this point. So we're going to go to the final clip of the live stream. We're going to react to a little bit of a Christian clip. It's a long clip. I'm actually going to bring it back on a live stream tomorrow, which is actually just a couple hours from now because it's already the next day, EST. But we're going to react to about 5 minutes of it. It is Christians versus Satanists. So for those of you that are into that kind of thing, Satanism, or maybe atheism or agnostic, you'll probably like this, so you can stick around for that. Those of you that are Christian, you'll probably enjoy this, so stick around for that. We'll watch a little bit of it, and then I will bring it back to the live stream tomorrow, because I usually end or start the live stream with a Christian clip. So I'll probably either play this in the middle tomorrow or at the very beginning, but we're going to jump into the clip now.
$9.99. I mean, it's our best deal ever.
Wayfair presents Office Furniture. With desks in every style, all under $199.
I see what I mean. Are you familiar with the concept of proselytization?
I am.
And that's something that we don't do. We don't 100% forcing our religion on others.
Okay, so shout out to Centerpoint. Centerpoint is kind of like, if you guys know Jubilee, Roundtable, anything like that. They're very similar to that, but they're building their own platform. They are the host of this, so I think that this was a great conversation. I pretty much got a chance to watch it in its entirety. But like I said, we're only going to react to maybe about 5 or 10 minutes of it, and then we're going to go ahead and cut this live stream, and I'm going to bring it back tomorrow for us to continue to react to it.
I'm 100% going to continue sharing Jesus everywhere I can.
And I absolutely encourage you to do that. I wish you the absolute best.
Welcome to Counterpoint, the show where real people with opposing beliefs sit down to have honest conversations. I'm your host, Ryan Price, and today's episode we're exploring the topic of religion, a discussion between Christians and Satanists.
My name is Bohr. I'm here to have an honest, compassionate conversation about Satanism and how we express that here in the world.
My name is Levi, and I'm here for open, honest discourse between two groups of people that don't necessarily see eye to eye on everything.
My name is Michael Stewart, and I'm here representing the Grotto, which is a satanic group out of Kansas. And I'm here today because I thought this conversation was important. And then I was just curious. I wanted to see how it went, so I followed that experience.
My name is Mortimer Dromlek. I'm here because I believe in religious pluralism.
My name is Brennan. I'm here today to have a conversation with people who are also looking for purpose and identity in their life.
My name is Alex Hall. I'm a pastor at a church in Omaha, Nebraska called Revival. I don't know, just sounded like a fun time. Just came.
My name is Vanessa, and I'm here because I believe conversations like this are very important to understand both points of view.
My name is Eric Shaw. I pastor Creekside Church here in Council Bluffs. And always love discourse and exploring ideas and differences of views and opinions. So.
My name is Raven, and I'm a Christian, and I'm here just to talk about my relationship with God and just to hear others' perspectives.
Satan represents freedom more than God does. We'll start by bringing up everyone that agrees now. Okay, I cannot say I'm surprised.
So, like I said, I got a chance to watch this in its entirety. I'm not going to lie. I was kind of upset that none of the Christians came forward when this question was posed. Satan presents to have more freedom than God does, right? Like something like that. I'm paraphrasing. I was surprised more Christians didn't come to the front, because as Christians, we already know that Satan disguises himself as an angel of light, right? So of course he makes it seem like if you don't follow God and you follow him, your life is more free, right? You can do whatever you want, right? You're not bound to all these rules, and you're not bound to this certain type of lifestyle. So I was surprised when none of the Christians came forward. I was kind of disappointed.
Who knows? But I would guess I'll start with just the closest to me. I mean, what about Satan compared to God? How does Satan offer more freedom or represent more freedom?
In mythology, Satan rebels against God and the tyranny of heaven and offers freedom to Adam and Eve through the tree of knowledge.
I think that it's an interesting question, and I do believe that Satan represents freedom more than God, and I think the way to really analyze it is by the way that Judeo-Christian and Muslim traditions actually use it to oppress more. That if we put the onus not on Satan, but on regulating the actions of God, that we actually see the difference there more than we do studying Satan.
I think that Satan is encouraging of the pursuit of knowledge in a literary sense. Obviously, I don't believe in a literal Satan. I feel that the pursuit of knowledge is worth going after. And Satan represents that throughout history in a bunch of different ways. Prometheus, the Lightbringer, giving fire to humanity. He's always been a champion of humanity, as opposed to live by my rules, or I will send you to the worst place imaginable when you die.
And how about you, Anya?
Actually, I have mixed feelings about my answer to Trump. On the one hand, Satan represents a rejection of absolute authority. And why I have mixed feelings is that because of the rejection of that authority, I think there is, at least through practice of Satanism, taking on a great deal of responsibility. And having a great deal of responsibility for the moral decisions and the ethical decisions that you make. So while there is certainly the rejection of that absolute authority, the rejection of what decisions you make in terms of what is good and what is evil, taking on that responsibility is an important aspect of my practice.
Okay. I think now is a good time to bring in everyone that disagrees. For you, why does God represent freedom more than maybe opposing Satan?
It's actually a really interesting question. Like, I kind of went back and forth on it a little bit because, I think Satan's catchphrase is do what thou wilt, but in reality, I think sometimes the thing that we don't realize is that the thing we need to be saved from the most is from ourselves. And that's what God offers through His Son, Jesus Christ. And that sacrifice is that we can be freed from ourselves, from our sinful nature, that we don't have to live in the bondage of those things anymore. We don't have to feel the bitterness, the resentment, the anxiety, all those things, because Jesus did away with all those. And that's true freedom.
I think you kind of mentioned maybe like the law, like a God that tells you, like, you gotta do all these things or you go to hell. I grew up in that kind of church where it was, man, you gotta get saved, like otherwise you're gonna go to hell. And that was all I knew. And so for me, it was just salvation insurance. I don't want to go there. That sounds terrible. I got saved. I got baptized, gave my life to Jesus, but I still lived like hell and did whatever I wanted. And I just kept finding myself in darker and darker places and just living with stuff that I was like, what am I doing? And then all of a sudden,
okay, Satan represents freedom more than God does. So here's my point on this. Here's my take on this. There's a movie that I've talked about on live stream before. If you guys know it, then just let me know in the chat that you know the movie. It's called God's Not Dead, right? It's come out with about, I think, 3 or 4 parts now. But the very first part is probably one of my favorites, and it has one of the most interesting scenes in it that's gone viral since the movie has been made. This scene is where the guy in the scene is the dude who usually plays in like the Clark Kent Superman movies. I forget his name, but he's in this movie and he's talking to his mom, who is in a I believe she's in an elderly home at this time, and she has dementia, and she's sitting there, and it's one of his times where he goes to visit her, and he says to her, you were a Christian and you believed in God all your life. You were one of the nicest people that I ever knew. And, I'm rich. I have a great life. I don't believe in God. And look at where you ended up. I thought that this was extremely interesting because the lady usually doesn't have the ability to speak or say anything, but it's like she gets this moment of clarity and she gives her son this description, and she says, Satan does this thing. It's like you're in a jail cell, and he makes your jail cell real comfortable, right? So comfortable that you don't have the urge to leave. You don't think anything is wrong. And then, you basically lay down and you take a nap, for lack of better terms. I'm paraphrasing. And then before you know it, right when you realize that you're in trouble or you've done the wrong thing or you should get out, he like slams the door and you can't get out. And it's like, that's the reason why people feel like that about Satan, that he gives more freedom than God, because he makes it comfortable, right? Most people who are Christians, they understand this terminology I'm going to use, carrying your cross, right? And certain Bible verses where Jesus says things to us like, you will deal with trouble in this world. You will face trouble. When you hear things like that, that's not really something that people want to take on. And you're going to hear these guys talk about it a little bit more tomorrow when they start saying things like, you know, I don't see how the God of the Bible could be all loving when I watch people die during COVID in their own fluids. You start to see people talk about their own personal experiences and why it affects their personal belief and or relationship with God. You'll see Michael, the Satanist, he gives a very personal story about something that happens to him. So I thought that this was a really good conversation. That first question, like I said, I was pretty disappointed that more Christians didn't come forward. Because I really think that the devil does a great job at making it seem like he gives more freedom than God does, when all actuality is just not true. So we're going to watch a little bit more of this, and then I'm going to cut the live stream. I know the echo's annoying, guys. I have to do that for copyright purposes. Tomorrow, I might just do a vertical where you guys can kind of see the computer with me, and we're reacting like that because it's a lot less of an echo. When I do it through the streaming software, the echo just kind of helps on top of the, like, you know, for the live streaming issues, because YouTube, they'll snip you for that. Like, if you're not distorting the audio in some way, you're not fast forwarding, chopping, commentating, they're definitely gonna like demonetize your video for that. So I gotta make sure that I stay on top of that.
When I felt like the Holy Spirit get a hold of me and begin to reveal things in Scripture about my life, how I'd been living, what I was doing, and then when I started to see like, oh, his ways are actually better, there's more freedom, there's more healing, there's more fullness to my life, then I started to realize, oh, he wasn't trying to keep me from fun, he was trying to give me a full life. That was just my experience. Because I totally agree. A lot of churches have that mindset. Do this or you're going to hell.
So I think that we first have to understand what we define as freedom. And so if freedom is the ability to do whatever you want, then yes, I would say Satan could be the symbol for that. However, just doing anything isn't freedom. It is the ability to just do whatever you want. And is consistent with freedom is being able to be free from the things that are going to destroy me. And you use Genesis as the example. So in Genesis 3, the first example of freedom that Satan offered was the knowledge of good and evil. And with that, he also allowed for Eve the ability to, or he tempted her with the ability to be more like God. And from that, what ended up happening, what it led to was shame, guilt, and ultimately death. And to me, that's not empowering. To me, that is deception that is masked as liberation. And Satan still has that same pattern today where he goes through and he attempts to, he helps people to evolve, but really what it is without authority. And so when I look at God, he doesn't limit our choices, he allows for choice. And with that, it also gives us wisdom, the wisdom of free will, to know what's right and what's wrong. And that's a conscious choice that we're making. He's not limiting our freedom. In fact, his love is a protection for us, for the ability for us to be free from the things that can harm us. I look at myself as a parent. Whenever I have limited my children from something that could harm them, it's done as a means for protection, not as a means to control them. But because I know what's going to be beneficial for them, I allow them the ability to make the choice, but I also guide them in a way that takes them from the things that I know are going to harm them. So I don't think that's freedom. To say that doing whatever you want is free, and I actually think that is less freeing, actually.
The Prophet ﷺ said the best charity is giving water.
So.
Well done. I mean, I'm just echoing what's already been said at this point.
You kind of left this.
Yeah, but it's good, right? Amen. So on top of that, I might add a little bit of context. The accountability for actions is a good thing, right? And so, we have a justice system, we have so on. So, like the idea, I'm glad you brought up the real concept of freedom. If it was the absence of all constraint, it would be complete anarchy. And so, everybody doing what they want, what they feel is right, and just the idea that we live in an ordered universe where God just echoing.
Because I know what's going to be beneficial for them. I allow them the ability to make the choice, but I also guide them in a way that takes them from the things that I know are going to harm them. So I don't think that's freedom. To say that doing whatever you want is free, and I actually think that is less freeing, actually.
So I actually want to stop it right there because that's a great point. When I was talking to my wife about this earlier, I said she really uses a good point here when she talks about it from the perspective of a mother, especially as a mother of young children, because anyone could have cut her off and said something so ignorant, right? If she had children that were adults, right? Someone that was in this conversation could have been like, well, how do you know that your children having an experience with Satan wouldn't be good for them? They're grown adults. They should be able to surely make that decision on their own, right? But I think she did a great job as utilizing the example of them being children, because it's more like, I'm doing this because I know that they can get hurt in a way that they're not aware of, right? And no one would say, oh yeah, well, how do you know it's not good for this 5-year-old to get burnt by the stove? No one would say that, right? No one would say, well, how do you know it's not good for this 2-year-old to put their hand in the garbage disposal? We would all say, no, that's not good. We do want to put up some boundaries, right? And some things, we want to set some things up around them to make sure that they can't do whatever they want, even though they have the freedom to. Everything's not okay, right? And 1 Corinthians chapter 10:23, this is Paul speaking. He says, you say, I'm allowed to do anything, but not everything is good for you. You say, I'm allowed to do anything, but not everything is beneficial. In context, Paul is talking about something a little bit different here, but at the same time, he is saying, depending on what kind of translation you read, you could do whatever you want. Like, there is nothing to actually stop you, but everything you do is not beneficial for you. Everything you do is not good for you. I thought this was a great conversation, so I'm excited to bring this back to you guys tomorrow. Like I said, I might go just straight vertical where you guys can see my computer screen, just so there's a lot less of an echo. But that's up for debate. So I'll see how I feel when we come back tomorrow for the daily live stream. I'm going to probably watch a couple of more minutes of it, and then I'm just going to cut the live stream out so you guys can just, go to sleep or go to work, wherever your next stop is.
Well done. I mean, I'm just echoing what's already been said at this point. You kind of left this. Yeah, but it's good, right? Amen. So on top of that, I might add a little bit of context. The accountability for actions is a good thing, right? And so, we have a justice system, we have so on. So, like the idea, I'm glad you brought up the real concept of freedom. If it was the absence of all constraint, it would be complete anarchy. And so, everybody doing what they want, what they feel is right, and just the idea that we live in an ordered universe where God does, you could look at it as rules if you want, but that seems like a taskmaster kind of thing that's like, I'm imposing this on you. But anytime we obey God, or anytime that we live according to what He says is the best way and the best life, it doesn't add anything to God. It's for our benefit that we do find freedom in that. And so, I have a life where, prior to coming to Jesus, partying, just doing all the things, and I wasn't free. I was miserable. And then, when I did come to the Lord, just really, truly surrendered, kind of similar to what you're saying. Man, I found freedom, forgiveness, new life, the ability to start over, and just such joy. And then just the idea of constraining what is inside of me that craves what's destructive to me. That was a path that really led to real, true freedom in my life. So
I would start out by saying that I kind of see Satan as like a symbol of rebellion and destruction, and I would agree with you saying that he rebelled against God in Genesis. I think that sometimes people view Christianity and the Bible as like a whole bunch of rules and restraints in comparison to just guidelines and protection, like they were kind of saying. And so I don't really think that it's about freedom equaling rebellion. I think those are two different things, and I think that Satan represents destruction and rebellion, so he can't represent freedom at the same time. And I think it really just comes down to just making the choice to not become a slave to sin and not let sin control you, and just kind of choosing that instead of rebellion and destruction, because sin leads to destruction.
Okay. And now
I guess I'd just like to go to whoever would like to, if you have anything, start it off, and it'll be all you guys.
If I may, I really enjoy this dialogue about what freedom means and represents. I think it's important because I think there's a misconception. I'm sure one of these gentlemen will correct me if they disagree. That Satanism, especially when we use terms like "do as thou wilt."
Okay, so that's 11:22. I'm gonna go a little bit further back when we come back tomorrow. I stopped it at 11:22, so I'll probably go at like 11 minutes or 10 and a half, and then we'll go forward. I'm thinking about starting the live stream with that tomorrow. So maybe if I don't start it, then I'll definitely end it. That's what I try to do here, start it or end the live stream with a Christian clip. I appreciate you guys checking this out. I think it was a great conversation. I think we're going to enjoy the rest of it. They're going to talk a little bit more about misconceptions, what freedom really is, what we should think about freedom. I think that they made us so many good points just about how like God's boundaries actually shows that he does love us and it does provide freedom within those boundaries. So I'm super excited to bring this back to you guys tomorrow. I appreciate everybody hanging out on the live stream with me. I don't want to watch all of it. I don't want to watch too much of it because it's going to force me to go to a certain point with you guys. But let me see here. I think we're at 11 minutes and 22 seconds. So maybe I'll go to 12 minutes of it. Let's just get Michael's part out. Michael is the Satanist that actually he was also a part of an evangelical church at the same time. So I do want to hear his part because he's one of the most interesting people on the Satanist side. So let's listen to that.
Doesn't represent, told me if they disagree, that Satanism, especially when we use terms like "do as thou wilt," doesn't represent a total vacuum of moralism or the freedom to kill and destroy anything you want. That's not what it means. What it is the allowance for you to experience life and then make that decision for yourself, whether that thing is good or not for yourself. And that's kind of the whole basis of the left-hand path religion, is that it's not mapped out for us. We have the choice to walk that path, experience it, and then make that decision without an external power or structure applying that pressure on us. It's for us to decide. And I don't know if anybody here's murdered anyone. But that would be my thought on the definition of freedom. It's the freedom of experience, not the freedom to unwantedly destroy.
Piggybacking off of that, one of the core beliefs of various different threads of Satanism is taking responsibility for your own actions and not putting that on a higher power and claiming your wrongs and trying to rectify those to other people in this life rather than in the next. Because we have no guarantee there is a next life, and I do not believe in an afterlife.
Yeah, I'm curious. Well, first of all, I love this because misconceptions, right? I love it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that we would say, hey, we emphasize personal responsibility as well. We have choices. There's like I said, accountability. We might phrase it more scripturally where we say, you reap what you sow kind of thing. But there's grace inside of that too.
Okay, we're at
God, I don't reap everything that I've sown.
Yeah, thank God. He makes a great point there, Eric. He's also a pastor. He says, thank God we don't reap everything that we sow. Yeah, amen to that. Thank God we don't reap everything that we sow. All right, guys, so that's where I'm going to cut it out. We're going to go there. We stopped at about 13 minutes. So when I come back tomorrow, that'll be a part of the live stream. I appreciate you guys hanging out on the channel with me. Thanks for stopping by on the corner. Thanks for being interactive in the chat and being respectful. I will be back tomorrow for the daily live stream. I appreciate you guys. I'm thinking about jumping on. I want to jump on a little bit earlier for you guys as well, because I'm also trying to shift my audience a little bit. Usually when I jump on late at night, you guys are on here with me, but the analytics do kind of change a little bit as the seasons change. We always know during the holidays and stuff, views and stuff goes up, viewership goes up. It was crazy for me during November and December, and it's like my audience is kind of still in the same spot, But I have such a flexible work schedule. Sometimes I'm off work super, super early, and I just don't give you guys a live stream. So I'm ending the winter and going into the summer. That's something that I'm definitely going to work on for you guys. You're always going to get a daily one, but I would like to bring you guys more than one, but kind of at a scheduled place, right? Not just kind of all over the place or haphazardly. So I appreciate you guys chilling on the corner with me. I will see you guys in a few hours. Take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. Love yourselves. Love one another. Be peaceful. Tell somebody about Jesus.